Hello, welcome to this 6-part educational video series. I'm your host, Peter Murray. I'll be guiding you through this time we'll be spending together. And the purpose of these videos is to get a better understanding of history and the time and the letters and communications people had with each other. The first communication we'll be having was from 1772, with a governor writing to a merchant. This is the letter and the law. So the story starts with the penning of a letter on the 25th of November in 1772 from the current governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, to a merchant in Portsmouth named Jonathan Warner. And Hutchinson is notifying Warner of his summons to a court date set for the 16th of December to try a man named Ansell Nickerson for the crime of murder on the high seas. So in one letter, we now have 3 men, and let's briefly go into the backstories and political escapades of each individual. Thomas Hutchinson is what you might consider the typical loyalist. He was born into a wealthy family, he attended Harvard, graduated at the age of 16, and then he went into the mercantile industry where he became a businessman, grew his wealth, and he became a historian and also a casual politician on the side. Now, the politics would soon take over as he would pursue public office in about 1770, where he became the acting governor of Massachusetts and oversaw the implementation of the Stamp Act. And because of his role in this rather outrageous series of events and his antagonism of individuals like Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty, his home was looted and burned to the ground. Hutchinson didn't see these lootings and the burning as a political move that persuaded him. Instead, he grew in his distrust of the common man and became more in favor of the crown's parliamentary system. And so by 1772, the lines in the sand were clearly drawn with where Hutchinson stood. Loyal to the crown, loyal to the king. God save the king. In 1772, Warner's political leanings were somewhat of a mystery at the time. This is due to him having great business in England, being a merchant, and not wanting to anger the empire or the hand that feeds him, I guess you could say. Also, with him sitting on the king's council, it might be fair to say that he was in good favor with the appointees of the king in the colonies. Now, who was Ansell Nickerson? Because that's an interesting question. So, as far as we can tell, Ansell Nickerson wasn't much of an anybody. He was a man who had a bad reputation and who made some rather poor choices in his life. By 1772, we know that he was booked for piracy. So Nickerson didn't keep detailed records of his own, like people like the governor, Jonathan Warner, but it might be safe to say that with his past, he might have been in and out of prison, he might have been doing merchant work, but he clearly had experience on the seas and he knew how ships worked. Which is why his story is more interesting when he was asked, because he couldn't get it straight. When Nickerson was asked what happened on the ship the first time, he said that he had climbed through the railings of the ship, basically, and hid on the outside, and then he had waited for the privateers, who now turn out to be pirates, to go through and kill the other members of the crew. And apparently they debated on burning the ship, but they left it there, and they left it to float, and they took a bunch of the valuable goods. That was the first story. Now, the second story that he told came when he said that the second story he told, apparently he claimed that he had hid in the hull of the ship away from the pirates, where they had debated on burning the ship, and they had taken all this valuable loot, and then they left. But now the issue is his story is conflicting, which immediately raises suspicions. Either he was nervous, he didn't remember properly, or what he said happened didn't actually happen. And this is this situation is made even more interesting when they found a storage of fresh meat, as though he was going on a trip for himself. So with suspicions reasonably raised, the governor, Thomas Hutchinson, immediately wanted justice, and he threw on the charge of murder on the high seas on Ansell Nickerson. And this is where our friend Jonathan Warner comes in. Summoned to Massachusetts, summoned to the courthouse for the court date in December to judge the case of Ansell Nickerson. Will he be guilty? Will he be innocent? Well, without a good lawyer to back him, Ansell is basically straight up a creek without a paddle.